decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, y'all. Go with me. Still I will follow. No turning back. Don't go with me. Y'all not go with me. Still I will follow. Still I will follow. No turning back. Come on, no turning. Here we go. The cross before, the world behind, no turning back. No turning back.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 980 AM WDDO, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Good afternoon, Middle Georgia. It's time for the Middle Georgia Spotlight with your host, Macon, Georgia's former mayor, C. Jack Ellis. Tune in to engage in discussions of the issues of today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Let's go into the studio with former mayor, C. Jack Ellis.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Middle Georgia Spotlight on the radio. I say on the radio because we also on television, WMUB over at Mercer University, Channel 28. And we are seen on Cox Cable, Channel 112, ComSouth Cable, Channel 212, Watson Cable, Channel 15, Reynolds Cable, 112, and Flint Cable, Channel 7. So we appreciate you tuning into the Middle Georgia Spotlight. Airs 3 times weekly on Saturday morning at 8 a.m., Saturday night at 8 p.m., and Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. And we appreciate you all tuning in. And we're also on Facebook. So if you missed the show, you can go to the Middle Georgia Spotlight with C. Jack Ellis on YouTube. I said Facebook, YouTube, and you can see all the episodes. And we even had our the young lady that I followed here on Wednesday, Commissioner Elaine Lucas, been on our program for a couple of times. We appreciate her for appearing. Listened to the show as much as I could today on my way in. And I appreciate all the great information that she sending our way. So we appreciate you tuning in to the Middle Georgia Spotlight on TV and now here on the radio at 4:15 every Wednesday from 4:15 to 5 p.m. and we until 5:15 p.m. And we will be accepting your phone calls. That number is 478-250-1444. We discuss a lot of issues because there are a lot of things going on locally, statewide, regionally, and the world. A lot of things going on, and we want to get right to it. First of all, I want to congratulate the Tubman Museum for the Pan-African Festival this past weekend. They were not around last year because of COVID, but they came back strong this year. It was out at the Centroplex Coliseum parking lot. They did a great job. A lot of you came out. I was there for a couple of days myself. Well, both days. It was Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of you there. Great gospel music on Sunday. On Saturday, great secular music, I guess you could call it, R&B, soul, what have you. And so many people having so much fun, good food. The vendors were there. A lot of good information coming from the stage. So congratulations to the Tubman Museum and the Pan-African Festival. Google that word Pan-Africa. I want you to know what it means. So if you're celebrating something, you should know what you're celebrating. It's the oneness of Africa. Wherever you are in the diaspora, if you consider yourself an African-American or of African descent from the continent, then you should be a Pan-Africanist because we're all connected as one. And, of course, we have a great holiday coming up this weekend, Mother's Day. Who can be against Mother's Day? So I'm going to give a shout-out to all of the mothers, expected mothers, what have you. If you're a mother, going to be a mother, happy Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. And I know that's one time that we all go to church. As they used to say, either you're a CME, not in the real sense, but either you go to church on Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. That's one time that we all go to church on Mother's Day. And we love to go to church with our mothers on Mother's Day. I know I did when my mother was sojourning here on earth. I would drive stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I remember in Fort Cameron, Kentucky, and I would come home for Mother's Day so I could go to church with my dear mother on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day. And we have another great holiday coming. And when I say a holiday coming up this at the end of this month, and that's when we consider it the beginning of the summer. But it's more than that to me as a Vietnam veteran and a retired military person who served in Vietnam. So many young men lose their lives. It's Memorial Day, and we want to give reverence to all those young men who made the ultimate sacrifice. Of course, our very own Rodney Davis, well known here in Macon and Middle Georgia, throughout the state, really received the medal, earned the Medal of Honor for his what happened to him there in Vietnam. Of course, he lost his life. So many others lost their lives from Macon. A lot of, especially African Americans, and I want us to remember them on Memorial Day. Speaking of Black Vietnam veterans, there's a project along the Atlanta Beltline. Of course, it started here at the Tubman Museum, the portrait project of Black Vietnam veterans from Bibb County. We were displayed in the Tubman Museum a couple years ago, but the gentleman Crawford, I forget his first name, photographer, I don't know how he came about, but those same photographs of all of the Black Vietnam veterans from Macon, not all, but the ones that he could find to photograph, they are on the Atlanta Beltline. I think WMAZ is going to do a piece on it, maybe today or tomorrow. Stay tuned, you'll see it. And my picture's there as well. And it just so happened, I didn't know this project was going to be on the Beltline. I was in Africa, and I think January it was, and my daughter sent me a picture. She and her husband and my grandsons happened to be out on the Beltway in Atlanta as an outing. And lo and behold, they stumbled upon my picture right in front of the Ford factory there at the Beltline. If you've been on the Beltline in Atlanta, the old Ford factory near the old Sears building down at on Ponce de Leon. And why it's significant to me, when I enlisted in the Army in 1963, that's where the enlistment office, what the reception office, where you took the oath of enlistment, was right there at the old Ford factory. And lo and behold, my picture is displayed right on the Beltline, right in front of the Ford factory. But there's so many other worthy, everyone is worthy. Every Black Vietnam veteran there is worthy. Not that we against our white Vietnam veterans, but we have to understand we were fighting two wars. We were fighting war in Vietnam. We were also fighting the war back here for equal rights and things of that nature. For instance, I was in Vietnam when Dr. King lost his life. I was also in Vietnam when my good friend Otis Redding succumbed to the I met his demise in a plane crash. But so we were there in the jungles fighting, and you all were back here fighting for rights. And even my good friend Herbert Denard, who returned from Vietnam before I did in 1968, came back here and could not even get a membership in the Young Men's Christian Organization. Now, believe that. Association. The YMCA in Macon, Georgia in 1968 would not allow a Black Vietnam veteran or Vietnam veterans to join it. And to that end, they would rather close it down, and it's closed to this day rather than integrate. So that's the kind of war that we were fighting. So we a little different than other veterans, World War II veterans, because they was totally segregated. The armed force was integrated in 1948 by President Truman when he issued his executive order. But there still were all Black units, combat units. In Korea, the 24th Infantry, for instance, left Japan as an all-Black unit, then they integrated. But we were all integrated during the Vietnam War, even though we were segregated back home. But when we got to Southeast Asia, we were serving right alongside white boys who from Macon, who went to Lanier. We went to Ballard Hudson or Appling, which is another story in and of itself, because if they went to Lanier, they were able to go in at a much higher pay grade than we were. We went in maybe $75, $80 a month if we went in 63, 64, drafted, no matter. But they were going in at $145 a month because they had the opportunity to attend junior ROTC at Lanier, and we were denied that opportunity. So we were fighting the same war. They were being paid more than we were paid, and we think we have a case. As a matter of fact, I appeal to all veterans, especially those who served anytime from Macon, went to high school here. Anytime from 1948 until 1970, when the school system was finally integrated, we are filing a class action lawsuit against the Army and against the school system, the city of Macon and Bibb County, because of what they did to us. They denied us an opportunity to earn money after Brown versus Board of Education. After Truman signed the law stating that there would be no discrimination, they continued to deny us opportunity to go in ROTC. So for all those young black men, be it Korea, World War II, whenever, Vietnam, and Afghanistan, everyone who lost their lives on this Memorial Day, we want to remember them, remember their sacrifices that they made, so that we could all, quote unquote, be free, even though sometimes we were not even free ourselves, as we were struggling in the jungles of Vietnam, in the cold hills of Korea, the young men who fought there. So we did double duty, if you will. So enough said about that. And now we are getting on up in age. Matter of fact, this is the beginning of the baby boomer year, 1946. I'm in the leading edge. We turned 75 this year. Can't believe it. Like it was just yesterday, I was 22. But all of us now turning 75 this year. Bill Clinton, Trump, of course, those two, they avoided the war. They made sure that they stayed out of Vietnam. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Dan Quayle, George W. Bush, we all turned 75 this year. And the only, I went to Vietnam, but of course the rest of them did not go. And so we are here on the air at, and we're expecting George Muhammad to show up later. He said he's going to join us. As a matter of fact, he's calling me now. I'm going to take this call. Yes, Brother George.
Yes, I'm out front.
You out front? Okay. We're going to have someone to go right out and get you. We hate to be unprofessional like that, but he was coming to be on the program with me, and he was outside, and no one had paid attention to him ringing the doorbell, so we want to get Brother George in. But anyway, as I was saying, we're all this baby boomers at 75. Can't believe that we have made it thus far. And we ain't no ways tired. I know I'm not. I can't feel no ways tired, because God is not finished with us yet, and I know he's not finished with me. But a lot of other things that we need to talk about. There's COVID funding. I heard, before we get to that, let's talk about the census. And George is going to come in. He worked on the census. He worked on the census this year. Of course, we were delayed, and some of you didn't fill out the census form because of COVID. You were afraid no one could answer the door, but we still had to get those numbers, because money comes here based on numbers, and especially based on the number of poor people we have. That's how we get our money to the city. And we didn't have, I've had a sneak preview. I used to work for the Census Bureau, so I've had a sneak preview as to what our numbers look like. And of course, the state of Georgia had about 1.2 million people, and increase in population. But Macon Bibb County's population has remained flat for the last 40, 50 years since integration. That's when all the white people started running out to the suburbs and left Macon. And we haven't grown since. I think we had about 2% growth in 2010. And after 2010, since that's the county-wide, the city did not grow at all. So this time around, we didn't see too much growth. We won't get another congressman for the state of Georgia. We thought we were, but they'll be able to slice and dice those 1.2 million, shovel them out in the ones that we have, and the districts that we have. So some districts maybe have 700,000, others have 600. But anyway, we didn't get one. But let's get back to this COVID funding. And whenever George is hooked up, I'm going to have him to greet you. But in the meantime, but I don't want this to be a monologue. I want to share some information, but I really want you all to call us. And someone says, you're going to have to get a non-Macon lawyer. Well, we already have one from Macon, but I had a constitutional lawyer before here, Dave Odell, who gave us some advice, said that we did have a case that we could move forward constitutionally. Because we're following the Ledbetter law, which the Supreme Court ruled against, but then the law was put in place after that, saying that women could not be paid less, so anyone else could be paid less, and we were paid less to fight the same war that a white guy was fought fighting from Macon, Georgia, had the opportunity to go to Lanier. And what's unique about, let me share this with my brother, whoever sent that, Johnny, let me share what's unique about this Lanier. Unlike any other one in the world, Lanier High School was different. Starting in 1917, the Army signed the contract with Lanier High School to train future military leaders, be they enlisted or officers. It was a recruiting ground for West Point, the Naval Academy, ROTC units, what have you, was Lanier High School. And so the difference was the Army assigned people here from the Department of the Army. The Major Carter that was in charge, the non-commissioned officers, they were all active duty military people. They were not reservists. They were not retirees like our current superintendent of schools, who's a retired lieutenant colonel. He too was an ROTC instructor in Griffin, Spalding County High School. But the difference was he was hired by the school system. The Army didn't assign him there. Macon was the only one in America situated the way it was situated, starting in 1917 at the beginning of World War I, and stayed that way until this racist segregated system was swept away in the late 60s, early 70s. So we have a case and we are moving forward with it. And you might say, well, why are you suing the city and the county? Because at that time, remember, the mayor served on the school board until 1998, 1999. He served on before I came in office. The mayor was a member of the school board. Even a member of city council, Ed DeFore, served two positions. He was an elected position on the school board while he served as a city council. In addition to that, the county did not even allow the school board to set its own budget until 96, 97. Before that, they went before the county, just like any other department, and begged for their budget. So the city and county were culprits here, and they helped perpetuate this racism and this discrimination, this systemic racism, which caused financial harm and ruin to a lot of harm, for, if not ruin, definitely caused financial harm. While a young black boy attending Ballard Hudson entered the Army, $78 a month. A young white guy entered the Army, attending Lanier, he entered $145 a month. It's clear that was a disadvantage to us. And as a matter of fact, I wrote an op-ed, an essay, and sent General Austin a copy of it, the Pentagon. It will be in this month's Informer. And not because I'm in the Informer, but let me encourage you all to pick up that Informer, read it. And it's just that. It informs of a lot of things that's not in this local paper, the Macon Telegraph, and support the sister. She's a publisher, one of the few black women I know publishing a newspaper in this region, if not in this state. And she deserves our support. So advertise in it, support the advertisers in it. I advertise in her magazine, her periodic, I guess you call it. Now I don't want to call it a tabloid, but it's a monthly. Get your copy this month and get a copy. Buy one. Get just because you can get it free. Send $1 to her so she can continue to put out good information that we all need. George, welcome to our program.
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you
okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Let me thank you so much for joining. This is George Muhammad, you all, and I asked George to come he wears so many hats in this community, and we all should wear many hats. Don't get pigeonholed. Don't think you just because you're doing this, you can't do that. But George, he coordinates the Kwanzaa every year that we can celebrate our oneness in Pan-Africa. We can't celebrate Pan-Africa in May if we don't celebrate Kwanzaa in December. He also heads up the Juneteenth celebration, the day that slaves were freed in Africa. He can go into detail, but I know it was in Texas on the 19th of June. But we have to remember that Macon, Georgia slaves, and my great-grandmother was one of them, and my great-grandfather and my great-uncles were one of them, and my great aunties were part of that, were not freed until April of 1865, even though that proclamation was signed in January the 1st, 1863. Macon, just as they did with the school system, they resisted until 1865, until they surrendered, as you would tell us, at Tatton Square Park. And that's why you have that celebration in Tatton Square and remembrance of the ancestors and their gaining their freedom. And April, I think it was April the 14th, 65. So welcome and thank you
Thank
for
you.
what you do. Let me ask you a question before we get to that. Then you can get into Juneteenth and all the things that's going to be there. What is the state of Black Macon? If you are right now, every year the Urban League, they put out a report, the state of Black America. I think that the State Chamber of Commerce, Black Chamber, used to put out one, the State of Black. I know at Atlanta they put out one, the State of Black. What is the state of Black Macon right now, in your opinion? And I'm not putting you on the spot. I know you don't have anything for you, but you are so in tune with this community. I think you can answer this question without notes or research.
Yes, I can give you my thoughts. When I look at Macon, you say politically, economically, educationally, spiritually, in terms of health, we have some serious problems. And, a lot of it comes out in what's happening in our neighborhoods, continuing to have a lot of problems with this Black on Black murder. And it's all over, and there's a lot of, being upset about white police officers, murdering our people. But there's a lot of Black people murdering themselves. And that's a very serious problem that persists. It's in most cities, and it's definitely in Macon in a very bad way. Economically, I think we're really struggling as far as anybody being able to seriously break through into great wealth and being able to spread the wealth, being able to, give back, be independent, be strong. We still have a lot of kowtowing that people are doing, and a lot of division, lack of us putting our dollars together. Of course, the pandemic gives a cloak. It gives a kind of a sheet that it's hard to see as clearly certain things. One of the most serious indications, I think, something that said to me, and of course, as I say this, I want to say that, we have to do our best with whoever is elected. Our current mayor, we have to do our best to work with him, encourage him. Hopefully, he will do well. And for those of us that may have felt negatively about him, hopefully he will exceed those expectations and he will show differently. But from a political standpoint, and you see this again and again, it seems like Black people in Macon are afraid to have Black leadership. And that's a very...
Afraid of power.
Afraid of power. And I mean, when I say Black leadership, to have a Black person who is in power, they're afraid of electing somebody like that. And just the whole perception of self. How do we view ourselves? What do we want for the future? It's the thing that really spoke to me is when we say that word unity. Whether you like Clifford Whitby or not, you had, for the first time that I've seen, all the Black political leaders to stand with him. And you had a lot of ministers, reputable ministers, in this community to advocate for him. And when we see unity being developed among our people, then it is incumbent for us to support unity. And you hear about the Willie Lynch syndrome. Some people think it's a myth, but the end result is real, regardless of what you think about how the information came about. The end result is real. We are divided still with envy, with fear, with these feelings of distrust of each other. And that's here in Macon, you were speaking about some serious things. Macon has a lot of unique aspects to it. It's a very unique place. It's a watershed place. We're in a very serious zone where we live. And when we are behaving in a very self-destructive manner as we have, when we continue to languish with the kind of suppression and being passive in our actions, in our thinking, lacking the progressive drive among ourselves, when we have all the tools, again, you look at the investment in education, when you are able to go and get a doctoral degree, when you are able to go and get a master's degree, when you're able to get these types of educational achievements, it's not just to have a letter beside your name. It's not just to be able to say, I'm making more money, but it should be putting you in a position of empowerment that your ancestors were not able to be in. They've invested, they've sacrificed for us to have an opportunity. And now today, where so many people have doctorate degrees. So many people have master's degrees. So many people have these educational achievements, but then we don't see that reflected in the progress of wealth building, in the progress of independence. You look at these gas stations, you look at the need for grocery stores, look at the need for equity. We're continuing to have to beg Kroger. You have food deserts and have to beg them when they turn their backs on the community like they have, and the way that they treat the community, and when they take in billions of dollars, these kinds of things. And we do not have the resolve. We're not displaying it. We're not manifesting it. Though we have the talent, we could do it. We could do it. I see somebody said unity will never happen. I have to say, let me dismiss that.
Yeah,
we are going to have unity. It's just like right now, you might say God's will, God giving us the promise that we will be delivered, will never happen. You think that that day will never come, but God's will, God will not be thwarted. God's promise will not be denied.
The last shall be first.
That one day, that is going to happen, whether you feel like it or not, whether you believe it or not. And we cannot walk with a defeated spirit. And I'm not dealing with defeat. I'm not walking with that kind of
Amen.
Defeat.
Amen.
And we must all take that up. You just have to turn around and get your spirit up.
Yeah, and don't throw your hands up and say, "Oh boy, woe is us. We kill." Yes, we have a lot of things, a lot of negative things happening in our community. Yes, we have too many people killing one another. Yes, we have too many alcohol outlets. Yes, we have too many convenience stores where there should be a grocery store that's selling this processed food, and we are eating it and destroying ourselves. But before I go further, George, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that this is Ramadan. You are a Muslim, and we're in the middle of Ramadan. I would not have had anyone to sit at this desk during Christmas without wishing them Merry Christmas. I don't think I would have had a Jewish guy to sit here without wishing him Happy Hanukkah. So let me wish you Ramadan Mubarak.
Alhamdulillah, Ramadan Kareem.
Yes.
Maybe we should talk about Ramadan.
Yeah, we want to know. When does Ramadan? We can get to that. Ramadan ends when now?
It ends on the 12th of April.
And it's been going.
The 12th of May.
That would have been 1 month.
1 month.
Fasting.
30 days.
Yeah, fasting from noon, from sun up to
sundown. Yes.
Yeah, and we do want to talk a little bit about Ramadan because you are in Ramadan, and I think if we had a Christian pastor, I'm not saying you are a minister, but you are in your own right. If we had a Christian minister sitting here during the Christmas season, we would talk about Jesus. We would talk about the birth of Christ and why we celebrate Christmas.
Absolutely.
So I think it's only fitting. Why do we celebrate Ramadan?
Yes.
So I would ask you that question. What is Ramadan to the Muslims? We know what Hanukkah is to the Jews. We know what Christian is to the Christians. We know what another for the Hindus. And what is Ramadan to the Muslim, such as yourself, a Muslim such as yourself, not here, but all over the world, the 1.5 billion Muslims that's in the world. And before you answer that question, let me give the phone again, 478-250-1444. We're speaking with George Muhammad, who's in charge of the Juneteenth celebration, which will be coming up shortly. He will speak about that. He's also in charge of Kwanzaa, that happens during the month of December. And he's a Muslim, and he's in the middle of Ramadan. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Ramadan is many things, but first and foremost, it is a celebration, a thanks for the revelation of the Holy Quran, the book of the Muslims. It is known as a healing, and it's not just the book of the Muslims, it's the book of the righteous of all people, and we believe in the oneness of all under one God. So in Ramadan, in commemorating the revelation of the Quran through Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, we are engaging in an act or a striving for purification. When you can deny yourself water and food, when you are able to deny yourself of sex during the daylight hours, and in the evening of sex, if it is not your wife, or as is spoken of, one whom your right hand possesses, but really is essentially your wife or your husband, then this is an exercise of restraint, an exercise of controlling the physical
discipline,
the discipline of the flesh, and again, it's like a hedge is put around us during Ramadan. I want people to know that. That's the reason I brought it up. It's the reason when I say, we should talk about it, because I think people look at it in a very weird way, but it's a blessing. I want everybody to know it's really a blessing, because when you're serious about it, it's every year when it comes around, I look at it as a time that's really helping me to come up from wherever I am in life, and giving me an opportunity to get near the Lord, the Almighty of all, and when I really need it. We all need it. We are all vulnerable. We are vulnerable to all types of terrible attacks upon our souls and our spirits in this world. We need a nearness to God. We need God every moment, every second of our lives, and we depend on God. God is our heartbeat. God is our breath. And so Ramadan brings us closer into consciousness of that. And we're praying, we're striving to not use profanity. We're striving to be as kind to people as we can. We're striving to be charitable. We're striving to feed those, and also in your not eating, to have more of a sense of what it's like for those who have nothing to eat, what it's like for those who have nothing to drink all day. Because I have not had, my throat is dry because I have not been drinking any water all day. But also Ramadan is a way of really uplifting your spirit to be a new person. And another thing about it is that it moves throughout the year. It moves every year. It's based on the moon cycle. So this year it went from April to May. Next year it'll be up in March somewhere, and it moves gradually. So let's say if you started practicing you started observing Ramadan at some point in the winter. I can remember when Ramadan and Christmas and Diwali, the festival of lights of the Hindus, when Yom Kippur, and then Hanukkah right after it, were all in line like the stars, like the planets lining up. I can remember sometimes those holidays, those sacred days line up like that. Kwanzaa's right in there too. It can be a sacred holiday if you understand. But the point that I'm trying to make, or that I want to make, is that we only get so many times in our lives to see Ramadan move from winter to winter, or from spring to spring. And as you see those times come around, you know that your life is numbered. Your days are numbered. It reminds you of the need to try and do something with your life that glorifies God, and that would give you integrity because of your glorification to the only one, the source of all integrity, which is the Most High. We say Allah, but there are many holy and righteous names. We're not going to argue with people about what you call God, your word, for your sacred word for the Most High, but we're talking about that same essence, the source. So I just want people to know that Ramadan is a beautiful experience, and really is something that Christians, because when you say, what Christian is not striving to submit his or her will to the will of God? What Christian is not doing that? And so if we went by the dictionary definition of Muslim, the definition of a Muslim is one who submits his or her will entirely to the will of God. What Christian is not trying to do that? So then you have to ask yourself, is a Muslim a Christian? We begin to look at these things and you begin to quibble over certain things. But even the Quran says at a certain point, you know, you divided yourself up into sects and parties and you began to argue. But at the end, I will be the one who settles who is correct.
Yeah. Now, when you break fast, when it's finally over, what is that day called? That you have the big feast, everyone comes together. That is called
Eid.
Eid. The Eid.
And
I
Eid,
want you to
it means recurring happiness in Arabic.
Yeah.
And the recurring happiness is that we have the blessing of divine revelation. Without the revelation and the guidance of God, which you find when you open the Holy Quran and read it, when you open the Holy Bible and read it, when you read the Bhagavad Gita and other holy texts, you gain divine revelation. And we're talking about the Quran and the specific purity of that book. When you are appreciating that, if not for divine revelation, we would be in darkness. Yeah. We would not know the way. So it is such a blessing. It's particularly we're in this dark time that we're living in this world when wrong is being made to seem right. Yeah. And we are and right is being made to seem like we don't know what in the world it looks like. Yeah. We need divine revelation.
You know, I want to share something with this with the audience and to you. You're probably aware of this. When I was mayor, I had there's a large Muslim community in Macon from all over the world, Pakistan, India, you name it. Right here, converts, people who were born into a Muslim family, those who have converted. Now, I used to have a Christmas dinner for our senior citizens. Christmas, I called it that, a Christmas dinner. And I would have a Christmas dinner for employees. And I would have something for Hanukkah. But that year, I decided to have dinner in City Hall for Muslims. And there was a member of City Council by the name of Nancy White. And she was a missionary, she said, in Pakistan. Her father was way back when. She thought that was the worst thing that I could do was to invite Muslims to have this, to in Ramadan in City Hall. Why would I ever do something? And this woman calls herself a Christian, and yet we are recognizing all religion. I've had all of them in. So if I can have a Christian in for a Christmas lunch, why couldn't I have? My point is, how many other people think like that Muslims are less than, they're not as important as Christians, or Christians are better than Hindus, and Jews are better than them all? But
it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. But I reflected, and that came to my mind when you were speaking about eating. But let's get back to two other things I want to hear. Now, you work for the Census Bureau, not only this time, but the last time. Now, this time was different. We just got the figures out from the Census Bureau, and you can call us at 478-250-1444 if you want to comment on this. But you all had a most challenging time. When did you finally complete, quote unquote, complete the count, when you say, we've done all we can do, we're not going anyone's out? When was that? What month?
They stopped the enumerators at the end of October.
October of 20. Okay. So now, of course, we're all pushed back. Normally, those figures are by June sometime. I know when I was working with the Census Bureau, the figure. Now, what they are showing, what I've had a sneak preview, that we didn't do very well in Macon, that our count is lower than it should have been, because I'm sure because of the COVID, and maybe because some people just didn't answer the census, just like some people are saying they're not going to take the vaccine for whatever reason. They think that the government is getting in their business, but they don't realize that the kind of money that we are leaving on the table when you don't answer that census. So to that end, I want to get to the COVID. Now we have almost $200 million have been allocated to this city. $100 million at the school board, about $96 million, I understand, to the city and county government. And there are very few strings attached to this money, but it comes here based on your economic conditions of your city. And we know that we have so many people living in poverty. So my question is, what are we going to do, organizers such as yourselves, to ensure that we have input. I understand the school system has already put out something. They put out a call, if you will. They want input as to how this money should be spent. Was it smaller class size? I was listening to Elaine Lucas' show. A retired teacher called in. She's calling for smaller class size. How will that money be used? But let's get to the county. How are they going to use that money? How are we going to have input? How many affordable houses they're going to build? They just spent $1.3 million to buy the old Brookdale School when we had Virgil Power School down here. Could have been renovated and you could have had homeless people in it a long time ago. I suggested that to Mayor Rickard some years back when I called him the Grinch that stole Christmas when you were chasing people away. So, but if we can dip in and take $1.3 million for the homeless, and God knows the homeless should be taken care of. But just this morning, let me share this with you. I digress for a minute. Just this morning, I had a press conference, a media event in Rosa Parks Square, and lo and behold, the old shrine temple next to it, that's where the homeless people are living. Right? The mayor can look out of his window, the county commission, and see the people sleeping underneath the overhang at the shrine this morning. I went over and spoke to them, about 15 guys sleeping there. And I said, why don't you all go out to the women's center? They said it's too far and it's too restricted. We don't want to go out there. We don't want to have anything to do with it. But yet they are right outside the city hall sleeping as we speak. If you leave here and go by there, you see their camps are set up there. So my question is, we're going to make sure that this money goes where it's supposed to go. We don't want it to become a slush fund. As you said, we want to give the administration and these commissioners an opportunity, but they've got to have input from this community. We don't want to turn around 3 years from now and say, oh, the money is all gone. It's good to tear down houses. We tore down 2,000 of them when I was mayor. Not to have revisionist history, but we tore down over 200,000. But we also built a lot of houses. So I want to know not how many houses you're going to tear down. It's easy to tear down. I want to know how many houses you're going to build. How many houses you're going to renovate. What are you going to do in Pleasant Hill, Fort Hill, Bellevue, Unionville, and all the other places where poor people find themselves in need of infrastructure improvement? How much of that money will go where the need is, or how much of it is going to continue to go elsewhere? And I let you comment.
Well, you know, one of the things that goes through my mind, it goes back to when you ask in the state of Black Macon. And one of our biggest problems, I think, from a mobilization activism standpoint, it's not just politics, but it's just, you know, in terms of making sure your community is working properly, our being involved in our making leadership accountable. We really are very weak on that point. And a lot of things go on and we're treated and disrespected as a people. So many of our neighborhoods, East Macon, so many parts are disrespected because we don't speak up. We don't get organized. We don't hold leadership accountable. Every commissioner, Board of Education commissioner and county commissioner, they should be calling town hall meetings in their districts. And they should be getting input from their constituents. First of all, they should be making it well known. You say they almost try to make it a secret, this money that's out, the money that's available, this money that's coming through. There are a few people like yourself, James Beverly, that are mentioning it. And now, you know, people are forced to address it. But when you see, you have a city that has some serious poverty problems. Almost all of Macon is an opportunity zone. And therefore, when you have an opportunity now with $100 million, and then on the other side, another 100 million or 96 million coming through your community, because of really the fact that we are this poor has drawn this kind of money to this area. Why we have to come up with a plan of how it would be utilized. Traditionally, certain so-called powers that be, the same old folk, get access to this money up high, and before it ever comes to any of the community that it's intended for, then you know, they have swept it all up and they're using it to enrich in themselves and further increase their wealth. However, our leadership should be calling town hall meetings and getting serious and having a real tabulation of what the people feel and what they want. At the same time, beyond that, we can't just wait on them. There are many activists in our ranks. There are many people in our ranks. You have ministers, but beyond the minister, I'm talking about everyday people in the neighborhoods, neighborhood associations, people in the community, everyday people that live in all of our neighborhoods, Fort Hill, Pleasant Hill, Unionville, Bloomfield, Kings Park, McCall Road, all of the neighborhoods, every neighborhood you can think of in this community. We should be having people that are listening, that are understanding, that are coming up with a plan. What do we need in our community? And coming up with budgets, a budget line items. How can this money be applied? This is what we need in our neighborhood. And really the neighborhood associations are a key source if they were functional. Some of them are functional. Some of them have been shut down during COVID. We at a point now we're gonna have to deal with. If you got to deal with Zoom, if you got to meet outside, and you got to meet in a big gym with masks, whatever you got to do, we need to bring people's ideas together and not let this opportunity be wasted. Not let this go by and really that was going on. That happened, and we're still in the same state. Here is a lifeline, so to speak, thrown out, and we didn't even get a chance. We didn't even know was it in existence. And somebody else, or you could say it even better, he was a blessing thrown our way, and someone else stole the blessing.
That's exactly what I'm so. And we have to make sure, number one, this money doesn't belong to the city. It doesn't belong to the school board. It belongs to the people. It came here because why the school board got so much money? Because we have a large Title I school population.
That's right.
And you become a Title I school because you have a lot of poor kids attending it. Free lunch program. Not all kids get free lunch in the school. So that's how that money got here. So if this money is not put toward ameliorating those conditions that exist in those neighborhoods where those children are coming from the county and the county government, making sure that we are investing back in these communities. I mean, from tangible. I don't mean picking up garbage. You're supposed to pick up garbage. That's what we pay you for. You don't call a press conference every time you pick up a garbage. And I want to know when you're going to build something. And I was riding around Central High School this morning. The sidewalks, debris all on the sidewalks. Kids can't even walk on the sidewalk because debris, shrubberies, and all been there for a long time. So we have a lot of work to do. No question about it.
Can I say this real quick?
But I would definitely want to talk about Juneteenth before you leave. Now
your county commissioners.
We have 10 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
I'm just saying this real quick.
No, go ahead.
The county commissioners and the Board of Education, if they are not calling town hall meetings
to discuss what we're going to do with the plan,
and seeking the input of their constituents, what do you need them for? That is clear poor leadership. What do you need leaders like that? And that's the part of that problem I have with leadership and making. A lot of times they don't show the necessary care and investment in the people.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to say before we speak about the Juneteenth that's coming up, and that is, I don't know where you stand on this vaccines, but I want to tell you to get the vaccine. We're rushing vaccines now to India. South Africa has been hollering for vaccines for a long time. They're not rushing in it to South Africa. They're not rushing in it to Nigeria, but we're rushing them to India. Granted, there are 1.3 billion people in India, but there are 1.8 billion people on the African continent, if you really care to check it. So we have to think globally and act locally. So what we have to do is what we have control over right here. That money is here. And the vaccine, I encourage you to take the vaccine. Get vaccinated. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to do it. That's your business, but I say do it. But let's talk about Juneteenth. It's right around the corner. It's next month. We have Memorial Day, Mother's Day, then our next Mother's Day, Memorial Day, then the next big celebration in the African-American community before 4th of July, which like Frederick Douglass say, what is the 4th of July to me? It means absolutely nothing to me. But tell me about Juneteenth.
June 19th, from noon to 9:30 p.m., we will have a festival at Tatnall Square Park, the 29th annual Juneteenth Freedom Festival. We're going to be featuring, the headliner is the Miles Davis Tribute Band. And it's a wonderful group of world-class musicians. And we're going to have a number of local artists that are going to be performing and showcasing some of our local talent. We'll have Brother Bateen doing Hendrix and blues set and a number of other artists. We'll have during that whole week from the 12th of June through the 19th, Georgia Juneteenth week, starting with the Pleasant Hill neighborhood reunion on the 12th from 12 to 5. And then we'll have Black History tours during the week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And we're going to have a hip hop summit on Friday at the Douglas Theater, the Real Talk Hip Hop Summit. We're going to have an African spelling bee on Thursday, the 18th. So a lot of things, and the finale of that spelling bee at the Juneteenth Festival that's going to start at 12. So a lot of things going on, but let's talk about
the importance of
Juneteenth is. And if you go back 160 years, our ancestors, many of them were enslaved on plantations, enslaved in some form or fashion on this continent here in the United States. And 1865 was the year in which our ancestors were able to leave the position of being chattel, enslaved persons owned by white so-called slave masters. That is a very important thing to remember. If you can imagine, think about yourself today. If you were in a state of that kind of misery, the day in which you could actually end that, the day that ended for you, there's a lot of people that go to prison, which the 13th Amendment, it parallels the slavery. You know, it says slavery will be abolished, except for in the case of criminal incarceration. That's the 13th Amendment. So many of us who unfortunately get in a position that we become incarcerated, we're back enslaved. And again, when that day you're able to walk out of that jail and you really want to live, you want to see what it's like to really enjoy your life. That's the same thing that you're dealing with.
Just to be a human being.
To be a human being, to no longer be humiliated, and to be able to live as a free person, striving to be as free as you can be.
And that's worthy of celebration.
It's worthy of celebration. And this is what we are celebrating and commemorating each and every year. Yes, it happened in Texas, the end of slavery. The whole end of the road was Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865. But the same story was happening all throughout the country. Here in Macon, Georgia, it was April 20th, 1865. And in many other parts, Thomaston, Georgia, I think it was in May of 1865. So we're on the same page. It's about freedom. It's a freedom celebration. And all people need freedom. All people cherish freedom. And so Juneteenth is something that we should be celebrating more so than the 4th of July, more so than the Cherry Blossom Festival. It has a greater sense of substance, because when great granddaddy and grandmama could finally no longer be enslaved on that plantation and they could come away from a degree of misery, that's something to be thankful that they could finally breathe a little bit. Because what did they do for us? What did they do? They gave their lives, and we are from their DNA.
Built the city.
And they definitely built the country.
Yes. Black
people built this whole country, and so many inventions, so many things were developed because of our contributions. In fact,
free labor.
Even the Civil War itself, the tide was turned because of Black Union soldiers who got in the war with nothing to lose, and fighting for their own freedom. So it is something that is beautiful, and it's a time of education. It's a time in which, at the park, we want to have enriching Black history activities and information for people that come on that day, that Saturday, June the 19th. But it is something that we should all cherish, particularly as Black people. And really, you say so many, if you want good for yourself, you ought to want good for other people. I mean, if you're not, and you say you really a Christian, you say you're following Jesus, there's some hypocrisy in your words, and I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care who you're talking about. You ought to want good for others, just like you want good for yourself. And all of our white brothers and sisters and friends, or all of our friends who are Latino, or who are Indian, or who are Asian, who are different races, many of them are suffering oppression today, just like not nearly to the level that our ancestors suffered and that the native people suffered. But they are suffering, they are feeling now what we went through. And they should all realize that a price has been paid. A great price has been paid for freedom in this nation. And our ancestors have paid the price. So Juneteenth belongs to you. And it's something to feel good about. It's not something that we're beating people up about and trying to make them shame. If you're doing wrong, if I'm doing wrong, if any of us are doing wrong, we should be ashamed and get it right. But if there's an opportunity now to go right, let's do right. And let's recognize truth and educate our people, educate the children so they don't keep making the same mistakes and keep digging the same hole, because that means that much longer before they're going to have a chance to be free, those that are still harboring hatred and wickedness in their hearts.
Now, I was out of the country this past year doing Kwanzaa. I don't know whether you were able to gather, whether you did it virtually, or how did you celebrate? Because Kwanzaa comes full circle about when we were free. Then once we are free and once we got this education you talked about and got a little money, then we were supposed to invest and become entrepreneurs and provide services for our community. How are we doing on that front?
We were doing good. We had virtual presentations, and basically what we strive to do, or what we were striving to do, is to open up the consciousness of these 7 principles: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. It's all about the principles. We enjoy the food, we enjoy the music, we enjoy the colors, we enjoy dressing up and all this. But it's about the principles. 366 days a year, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Living the principles, the Nguzo Saba. These principles are the key to success for any people. Anybody you see being successful on this planet is practicing Nguzo Saba to some degree. But the ones from whom it came, the originators of civilization, that is the melanin people of this planet, are the ones who gave you those 7 principles, and the ones who need the most today to be healed by their practice. So Kwanzaa is essential, and it like you said, it is an answer, and it takes us further into the solutions after we have come free from this experience of this sojourn and this struggle in the hills of North America on these plantations. So once again, you can call. If you want to vend at the Juneteenth Festival, 478-737-3319, 478-737-3319 if you want to be a vendor. If you want more information, you can call 478-718-8067. You also can go to the website, juneteenthmaking.com. We have to update it, but it still has some wonderful information about Juneteenth, the Reconstruction era. So much education. Education will free us. We must learn knowledge of self and knowledge of God, knowledge of our past and knowledge of our future. We must learn to know who we are.
George, let me say we're approaching Mother's Day. I knew both your parents. They were educators, great educators, so they did a great job with you. You've taken advantage of the opportunities that were afforded you. And you are still educating Mrs. Espy. A lot of people would know. And Mr. Espy from Ballard Hudson, and she was the principal of Centra, then assistant superintendent. So this used to be George Espy, but this is George Muhammad, but his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Espy, who did the great work in him and laid this foundation.
Praise be to God.
And we want to, as we approach Mother's Day,
oh yes,
we
absolutely
want to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. Those of us who are mothers going on the glory,
so wonderful.
We have
God bless the mothers.
Yes, remember them as well.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for the great work that you do in this community free of charge.
You as well.
Well, thank you. We are doing our best.
Thank you for all your service.
God ain't finished with
You've been the best we've had.
Well, thank you.
All right.
We've been speaking with George Muhammad, who is in charge of the Juneteenth celebration and Kwanzaa and the overall community organizer and a community activist for good. Get your shot. Be good to one another. Love one another. Visit Juneteenth. Make sure your kids go to summer school this summer if they have to, and make sure they learn something. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis, on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. Thank you all so much for joining us. So long, everybody.
views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 980 AM WDDO Perry Macon.